Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of AACRAO's Credential Chats. We have two guests joining us this week. We have Melissa Kaufman, who is the Associate Dean for Education at the Dornsife School of Public Health at Drexel University, as well as Michael Edwards, Instructional Designer, also with the Dornsife School of Public Health, Drexel University. Melissa and Michael, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us. We're really excited
Thank
to
you.
be here.
Yeah, and we're really excited to have you here because, your story kind of touches on some really interesting, aspects that we haven't really necessarily explored in depth on Credential Chat Chat. And so maybe a good place to start is just, kind of sharing that this program that we're going to talk about today and the different touch points between higher education and state government and industry.
Yeah, happy to do so. So we were approached by the Pennsylvania Department of Health um, because there was a really high rate of mortality in long-term care facilities during COVID. So nursing homes, skilled nursing facilities, rehab centers. And they needed a training program for folks working in those facilities in infection prevention. And so we partnered with them to create 6 micro-credentials around infection prevention that were then offered to specific long-term care facilities in Pennsylvania. And it was a really, really fast ramp up. So we had about 6 months to get the first micro-credentials launched and going, and then participants earn a badge when they complete them.
And pretty cool that they approached you, and also, sometimes when we get overwhelmed in this work, we remind ourselves, we're not saving lives here, but you are literally helping people save lives with your micro credentials.
Yeah, a little bit. It's really amazing how much preventable infections can affect facilities like that. And it's infection and PPE and those kinds of things. But also we had a whole micro-credential on vaccines and vaccine hesitancy and how to talk to both employees and residents about getting vaccinated for things like the flu and COVID.
And, when you talk about, you got approached by the state government for this with these industry meeting this industry need for very important human need. One of the things that, kind of comes to my mind listening to that is you ended with the micro credential, you ended with the badges, but the relationship there, and how that worked, that part is not necessarily new for us. Can you share, just a little bit of what it's been like at the School of Public Health at Drexel University? You're navigating just what's old, what's new, and what are we making sense of here?
Yeah, so I think, we've had a long-standing relationship with both the Pennsylvania Department of Health and the Philadelphia Department of Health. This project was with Pennsylvania. And we've developed and done training for state partners and industry like this for many, many years. But what kind of is unique about this program was that we decided to put it into a micro-credentialing format. So one of the great things we got to do with this funding was we got to hire a full-time instructional designer in Mike Edwards, who's here with me, who really kind of brought the project to life. We also were able to make these, for the most part, asynchronous online. So each micro-credential is 12 weeks long. They're broken into 4-week modules. There's 3 of them. The first 3 weeks are totally self-paced asynchronous. And then the 4th week had an optional synchronous session over Zoom, as well as an optional quiz. And the kind of innovation is that folks could really do this work on their own time, at their own pace for the most part, which is really important when people, especially are working shift works and things like that. And then they got that digital badge, which I think is really unique because it's transferable. It's something they can put on their LinkedIn or their resume, and the internet is forever. So hopefully that credential will stay with them instead of it being kind of like a PDF or a certificate that's mailed out. So I think both, the relationships are existing. We have an existing graduate certificate and master's degree in infection prevention, but the format and it being really specifically targeted to working adults is kind of what made this program unique for us.
I love that. Michael, I don't know where I am on your squares there, but I was pointing there to when she brought you because that you're in that quarter for me. I saw you nodding along, as Melissa was talking there, and so I'm guessing you had something you want to jump in there, and so please do take that wherever you were hoping to take it. But also, I'm wondering, as an instructional designer, you're one of the first instructional designers I think we've had, at least somebody who is actively doing it, not just from that background. And so I'm curious, if when you bring in those things that Melissa was talking about with the actual, the artifacts, the badge, this learning record, how that might have come into play in interesting ways for you as a learning designer that maybe you haven't already, been historically thinking about on most of your projects.
Yeah, I think one of the most unique things about this project was that, typically if you're thinking about building out a course at the university level, you're working with one or two faculty members. There's kind of this unique vision that they kind of follow throughout the project. Here, I think, we follow this from what does a course director want from these goals, and then in collaboration with the Department of Health, we might have brought in, a guest person to do one module, a faculty member from another person, another university to do another module. And all of that was sort of the micro credentials are aligned with our course goals. And so we could kind of always, go back to that micro credential and build back from there. But in terms of this experience, I mean, one of the unique things for me was that, one week I was working with a faculty member, the next I was working with someone who, specialized in, weather prepared or, weather emergencies and how that applies to long-term care facilities. And it's all under this umbrella of these courses that we offer. So for that reason, also, I think, we had a really rapid, quick, design and development timeline. And sometimes we had to rapidly, edit or change things depending on the changing needs of the state as well.
Yeah, I mean that definitely sounds way higher stress than my given days. Especially working in healthcare during COVID. That's really just so important. One of the things that you were just have me reflecting on as you were just talking is with that intentional sort of notion of connecting the micro-credential and each badge to the actual learning outcomes, that you're marrying in ways that we don't always in higher education, especially learning records with some other pieces of data that hint at what the credential is credentialing, right? That normally we maybe have on a transcript or a certificate or a diploma, we can see what kind of content people took. But if we want to know what the actual learning outcomes are, we need to go to the catalog or ask somebody to share a syllabus. Whereas it sounds like you all were very intentionally designing the badges in a way that connected with the actual learning outcomes for each micro credential.
Yeah, the micro credentials, are narrowly focused, and more narrowly focused maybe than a college level course. And then when students get their participants get their badge, the beauty of the digital badging is all that back-end metadata, but you can actually go to the badging website and see what students had to do to earn the badge, what the course is about, and what competencies they had to, skills they had to demonstrate. And so I think that is one of the really exciting things about badging to me is that potential for that record to be in a digital space that can be kind of read by anybody who wants to view it.
Metadata is definitely one of my love languages in the micro-credential space, Melissa. So I'm definitely appreciate you sharing that piece there. What about, especially during COVID, but also now, as things continue to move and evolve, and the School of Public Health is learning and evolving itself and iterating. Can you talk through just some of the challenges, and especially given, just our kind of registrar and enrollment management professional kind of audience here, what kind of lessons learned, takeaways, bruises that other people can maybe hope to not get, or just uh, things that your best practices that maybe you've observed and are looking to implement moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the things that was unique about this is because it was micro-credentialing and it wasn't credit bearing, we unfortunately did not get to use any university level resources to enroll participants in the courses or to track registrations or things like that. We were able to use our learning management system with guest accounts, But so having to kind of figure out how to register people, collect that data, get the right people in the right course with the right username. I was tracking in Excel spreadsheets and kind of pulling my hair out and hand creating invoices at the beginning of this project. So I would say, I'm not sure that we could have done it differently because it was such a rapid development, but I now have somebody who's building out a database for me, which will make continuing to do this project and similar projects a lot cleaner for me and for our school. And then eventually I'm hoping to, at least at Dornside, figure out the other people who are doing continuing ed and get all of those people in a database. I'd love to see that at the university level so that I could connect the record of, okay, so maybe you wanted to do Six Sigma with the business school, a training on that, but then you're also in that healthcare field. And so you want to come and do our infection prevention training. That would be really cool. And then the dreamy world, right, is to then have it also be able to connect into their academic record. So if somebody's an alumni, we could know that. Or even if you're thinking top of funnel recruitment, maybe somebody does our micro-credential, really loves it, and eventually wants to do our MS in infection prevention. And how do we kind of just connect those stories and help us know our participants and our audience better?
I think that you are, way bleeding edge in that kind of a thinking right there, Melissa. I think that we're going to start to see a lot of light bulbs going off of people realizing, going back to that meta day that you talked about, right? That, and connecting that with different things in our technology stack, right? Including things like our CRM, and
Yeah.
that speaks to that funnel that you talked about. But what I really love is, that sort of lifelong learning funnel and, meeting people where they are and that recruitment, and re-engaging people over the next 60 years that you went to the word stories.
Mhm.
So could you just could you just say expand on that a little bit? What is it that
Yeah.
numbers and net new revenue and how do we engage these people? But for you, it's about stories.
It's about stories. It's about the people's life journey. And I think maybe because I have a little bit of a non-traditional background, I got my master's degree and my doctorate while working full-time online. So I didn't go that traditional route. I really think that as technology kind of speeds ahead, people are going to need to continue to skill and reskill. And it's not going to be as simple as I go and I get my bachelor's degree and that's it. I'm done with education for the rest of my life. I think people are going to be hopping in and out of these education experiences, and higher ed wants to be there. We're great at developing educational experiences for these students. And so having them, as they have their life's journey, be able to pop in and out of our institutions is important. And then with the badges let students or let participants tell the story they want to tell to a future employer. So it might be that when I'm applying for this job, the badge I did in A, B, and C doesn't really matter, but the badge I have in X, Y, and Z is really the story I want to tell when I'm talking about my skills and why I am the perfect employee for this job. And so I think kind of education to me is a journey. I mean, I'm a lifelong learner. I can't help myself. I love learning new things all the time. And I think we want to promote that in people and kind of get them in and out of our institutions learning more.
Michael, did you want to add on to anything there? I saw you nodding.
No, as Melissa was talking, it just made me think about a personal experience. I used to be a faculty member in another school in Pennsylvania, and I spent about a year and a half, 2 years transitioning and doing a lot of reading and coursework, professional development coursework. And so when Melissa was talking, I remember on my resume, I had kind of a group of courses, professional development courses that I talked and or that I took. And I explained that to employers, but I remember one, they were under the impression that I taught these courses. And so I had to explain, this isn't what this section is. It's my professional development section. And I'm thinking, if there were a different way for me to tell that story, I mean, I think a badge would have been perfect for that.
Hmm.
So just kind of a personal reflection on that.
No, I love that so much, and it is all about recognition and storytelling, and I think when we talk about credential innovation, the mobility of learning records, is, somebody who works in office of the registrar, where we're just passionate about making sure that we have trusted, verifiable, legitimate, learning records. I think it's really exciting to hear folks like you who are talking about these things as not just being things that we create and start issuing, but that the learners are actually using them afterwards. That these are things that are not just, going on a wall, but they're actually being operationalized.
Yeah. And we have evaluated these programs as we've gone through. And one of the quotes that we got was that, someone said, "I will continue to use this information in my everyday work environment." And that just like, I mean, it's like food for the soul. I was so thrilled when we saw that, because that was the goal of this particular of these trainings, was to create really actionable, practice-based training that folks could take and then apply to their work.
Wow. Melissa Kaufman, Michael Edwards, both with the Dornsife School of Public Health at Drexel University. Thank you so much. This has been an awesome Credential Chats. Really appreciate you taking time out of your afternoon to join us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you all, and thank you all for joining us, and have a badge-worthy week, everybody. Bye-bye.